Hi everybody. In some of my previous videos, I was analyzing various horror movies, like for example, the original Alien movie, and I was focusing mainly on psychological analysis, and the reason there is a reason I did that, and maybe some people don't understand why I'm talking about movies that are that dark. Maybe some people can't understand it. For me, it's kind of weird, but for me, movies like that, especially the original Alien movie, I like them very much, but maybe for an unusual reason. I like them on a personal level because they did help me. Actually, they did help me on a personal level, and I talked about this when I talked about the Alien movie, and I actually talked about this in depth on my German channel. Namely, as a child, I was sexually abused by my mother, which is unusual in and of itself, and that's why nobody believed me back then. And I talked about all that on my German channel, but for some strange reason, it's easier for me to talk about those very personal memories in German. So it's still kind of hard for me to talk about them in English for whatever reason. I'm not quite there yet that I'm actually able to talk about my personal experiences, my abuse as a child in English. I can do it fine in German, but I'm not quite there yet in English. So instead what I did is talk about those horror movies. For a specific reason is that, namely, a lot of horror movies actually are about rape. Even if you don't realize it, on the surface. And that includes like all the classic horror movies, like for example, The Exorcist. On the surface, The Exorcist is about, demonic possession and stuff. But if you view it from a psychological standpoint, you realize that it is actually about, a child that has been sexually abused. And it's the same with the Alien movie, the original one. And the Alien movie is full of symbolism regarding that. And for me, the character of Ripley, and I already said that, represents not only a rape victim, but a rape survivor, because in the end, she does survive. And that always inspired me tremendously and helped me a lot, because being the bad mother my mother was, she not only forced me to watch, porn movies when I was a little child, when I was like 7 years old, but when I was even younger, when I was like 4 years old, and I still remember that quite clearly, because I had nightmares for weeks after that. When I was 4 years old, they broadcasted the Alien movie, the original one, for the first time on German television. And she made me watch that movie when I was 4 years old. Just goes to tell you what a bad mother she was. But actually, that movie helped me a lot. Because naturally, of course, back then I didn't really understand all the symbolism. I didn't understand it at all, of course. It just, gave me nightmares, of aliens and stuff. And it didn't help, my mother, on the one hand, she forced me to watch the movie. On the other hand, she was also realizing that, of course, Alien is a pretty heavy movie for a 4-year-old to watch. She did kind of realize that. So she tried to make it easier for me by explaining the alien away and telling me that, oh, that's not an alien monster. That's just a snake. What she told me. So that made it even worse for me, because I thought that's what snakes look like. And I knew snakes were real. We live in a part of the country where the snakes are not common. So I have never seen a snake. But I know that there are snakes. And that made it all so much worse. Because then I thought all that was real, and that when I go outside, I might run into a snake like that. Like the alien monster. If a 4-year-old has never seen a snake, he might believe that, especially if his mother convinces him of that. Maybe she did that intentionally, just to scare me, to prevent me from running away or something. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe she was really thinking that she made the movie easier to digest that way. I don't know. But that was the worst. It scared me. It scared the living daylight out of me. And I had nightmares for many, many weeks. And that's why I remember it so well. Of course, I have watched the movie again since then, and I have realized what it is actually about. And I have realized all the psychological and sexual innuendos that I didn't really understand as a child. But even if I hadn't watched it again, I could probably pretty much tell you the whole story just from, having watched it as a 4-year-old. That's how well I actually remember it from back then. But I said that the movie actually helped me, and it did. It helped me a lot. I really, really thank this movie and other horror movies like that. They did help me a lot. In a way that, when I was 4 years old, that was already the time when my mother began to sexually abuse me. She did that when I was still very young. I think she did that intentionally when I was still very young, because she was probably kind of hoping that later on I would not be able to remember it, and that back then I would not be able to grasp the meaning of what she forced me to do. She was right about the one thing, is that back then I, of course, didn't understand all the sexual things that she forced me to do. But she was wrong about the part that I would not remember it when I was older. But yeah, back then I didn't understand what she forced me to do when she sexually abused me. But the Alien movie actually, even though it was such a scary movie and it gave me nightmares, it did help me to understand that. Not on a conscious level, but on a subconscious level, and mainly on an emotional level. Because that was, back then, that was the only way that I was able to understand things like that, especially the sexual things. That movie helped me understand them on an emotional level, which was very important for me, and it helped me understand that what my mother was doing to me was wrong. Because, as I said, Ripley in the Alien movie symbolizes a rape victim. Also the movie, the way the movie ends, because she's the only survivor, she's not only a victim, but she's also a survivor. She survives all that, So I was not able to understand the innuendos and the connections all of this had to rape on a conscious level and on a rational level, but I was able to understand all of that on an emotional level. So emotionally, I could identify with the character of Ripley very much, because I was in a very similar situation. I was also getting sexually abused. And I ended up being a survivor as well, in a manner of speaking. So that was a short explanation why I was talking about horror movies like that. They can be helpful, and they did help me understand those things that I would not have been able to understand back then otherwise. But be that as it may, don't let your children watch movies like that. It's a bad idea. It's just under those very specific circumstances that it actually helped me. So that's why I like to review horror movies. So that's that as an explanation for those people who might not be able to understand why I'm talking about movies that are that dark. There are dark things out there. Sometimes it's necessary to talk about them, and I'm working on actually talking about my childhood in English, but I'm not quite there yet. So for the time being, this is as much as I will tell. But I will make another video where I will talk about how I was abused